The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. I've got a Lewis update for people who are curious a little bit later in the bonus show. A couple stories I want to discuss first. Number one, Germany is going to be compensating more than 50,000 men who were jailed for their sexual orientation under an old law called Paragraph 175, which continued to be applied until the late 1960s. And 30 million euro, or about $33.5 million, have been set aside to compensate gay people convicted under this old law for their sexual preferences. This was revealed in a German newspaper whose name I would have a lot of trouble pronouncing. Germany's Justice Minister, Heiko Maas of the Social Democrats, told the paper that compensation, quote, would depend on concrete individual cases and that sentencing would be taken into consideration. If you at some point received a longer sentence under this antiquated law, then presumably you would be entitled to a larger amount of money. The draft law will be formally announced this month, and it will be, quote, relatively uncomplicated for individual claims. And it also will allow for collective compensation. Convicted gays would also have their names cleared, and that there's an expectation that more than 5,000 men would have personal claims. The infamous Paragraph 175 was part of the Criminal Code from 1871 to 1994, and it made gay acts between men a crime. Over 140,000 men were convicted in total. Around 50,000 of them were prosecuted since the end of World War II. I had no idea about this, and I think many people just had absolutely no idea that as recently as the 1960s in Germany, you could be prosecuted and put in jail for homosexuality. This is the first I ever heard about it, and I mean, it's great that people will be compensated, but it's also disturbing that more people didn't know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to put a number to what like the value is of someone's life. I mean, if they missed out on years or decades of their life while they were in jail,
right? I
mean, it's not just lost wages here. That's key moments of their life that they're missing out on.
Yeah.
Reparations are absolutely in order here.
This is a big issue with wrongfully convicted people who are released. And in some states, and I know that there's state law around this, and I don't know if it differs sometimes at the county level, but you'll hear about a place where the law is you get $34,000 for each year you were wrongfully imprisoned or something like that. So you might have lost 20 years of your life and you would get $600 and something thousand. And if you think, well, how much money would I have made if I had been working? Number one, you might have had a salary that was higher than $34,000. But in addition to that, what about compensatory damages, not just for lost wages, but for the fact that you missed 20 years of your life and that there was an injustice done to you? And there are some states where it's even more strict, where it's it doesn't matter how long you've been in prison. There's like just a hard total maximum. And sometimes it's lower than even six figures. And I don't know, this gets to the question of what's the value of a life, right? If you say, well, it's 30 grand a year. Okay. And if life expectancy is 80, then if you multiply 80 times 30 grand, that's $2.4 million, I think, if my math serves me right. We're saying the value of a life is $2.4 million. This is what insurance is based on, right? When you talk about life insurance, actuaries are sort of figuring out what is the value. This is pretty difficult stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, the public is paying for it too, so that's a whole nother layer to it. So It's going to be hard to pass bills through Congress that ups the amount that the people that were wronged here would get. But absolutely, it should be a lot more than $34,000.
Yeah.
I mean, even just 24 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day that you would be working, you should be getting, substantially more.
The other issue you're getting to exists also with fines. Like when we hear that, oh, Goldman Sachs ended up being fined $1 billion or something like that. By and large, usually you get fined the $1 billion because you did something really bad that affected consumers. But then the $1 billion usually just goes to regulatory agencies and the government. So unless there's separate lawsuits or there's a particular declaration that the fine is going to be used to compensate people who were negatively affected by what you did, even the entire concept of fining, it ends up just going to regulatory agencies and not really to the people who were affected. So much about all of these systems is just really, really messed up in the United States. Germany clearly here has an issue, and we will see ultimately how many people come forward to make claims and what these settlements are. There's this article that's been floating around that some people wanted me to cover it on the regular show, and I didn't do it, and I'll explain why. And the article is about Alex Jones. Alex Jones is this conspiracy theorist, sort of radio TV host. InfoWars is the name of his channel, and Infowars.com is the website. If you've never heard of it, it's actually pretty entertaining in its insanity. And there's an article, a bunch of articles going around, quoting Alex Jones for saying, I was told by people around Hillary Clinton that she's demon possessed, and everybody's up in arms and they want me to cover it. Alex Jones is so crazy. I've mentioned this story before. I am pretty convinced that this is all a joke. Alex Jones is clearly an actor. He doesn't believe any of this stuff. And it all goes back to a radio conference I went to in, I want to say 2009, probably, or 2010. And I guarantee you Alex Jones doesn't remember me because I was probably one of 200 people he saw that day. But I was standing in a very small group. It was Alex Jones, the two hosts of Free Talk Live, which is like a libertarian type show, Mark Edge and Ian Freeman, and me, right? It was just the four of us talking. And it was after Alex Jones gave his keynote address, and he walks over, and I guess he knew Mark and Ian, and he said in a way that seemed completely obvious, something along the lines of, you think I scared him? I thought about really freaking him out, but I decided not to, type of thing. And what he seemed to be saying very clearly is, I chose to do a slightly kooky presentation where he started do crescendoing and yelling the way he sometimes does. But I'm sort of aware of which character I'm playing, and this is really more of like an industry thing, so I talked more about business and whatnot. I had every impression that he was completely self-aware about the fact that this is a character that he plays, and it's nuts, and he can turn up the nuttiness or turn down the nuttiness. And based on that interaction and everything we've seen from Alex Jones, I believe that the stuff he says that's crazy, it's just a joke. I don't really believe he thinks this stuff. And I know that some people think it's real, some people think it's not real, but I remain convinced that this is a character.
That would be amazing too if he comes out with a big reveal someday, like puts out a book about it.
I don't think that it's anything we'll ever prove, but I think there's no doubt when you actually meet the guy in person, he is nothing like what he is on his show. He doesn't, I mean, in the private conversations I overheard, he did not have any interest whatsoever in talking about any of these conspiracy theories. Most real conspiracy theorists of this level, they want to talk about their theory all the time, whether there's a camera on or not. And there was no indication whatsoever that Alex Jones fit into that category. Maybe we'll never know. I don't really know. Let me give you an update about Lewis. Okay, I saw Lewis over the weekend. We actually had lunch yesterday with a couple friends of ours. And there are a number of questions from the audience that I forwarded to Lewis and that he answered for me. Question number one is, what's up with Lewis moving to the south of the United States? It's not even being prepared to begin yet. So it's going to be a very, very slow and long process. Lewis is hanging out in Western Massachusetts. He has not yet even scheduled his first exploratory trip to some of the cities and towns in the South that he's interested in, which remain, let me see if I have this list right. Charleston, South Carolina. What's the one in North Carolina? I guess Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh. I don't even know how it's pronounced.
Or Charlotte?
I don't think Charlotte's on his list. No, I think it's Raleigh no, Asheville. I'm sorry, not Raleigh. It's Charleston, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, and what's the place in Florida? I think St. Augustine is the place in Florida. I don't think any of these are places Lewis has ever been other than maybe Asheville. So he's preparing to start looking into potential dates for a trip to consider each one of these cities. That's where Lewis is right now, not in any rush, especially with winter coming, something about, I don't know, not traveling in winter, I'm not really sure. And then what's up with Lewis working? Lewis currently is not working, but he is looking to take on some apprenticeship work to develop some crafts that he's interested in. And one he mentioned is interning at a brewery, which is interesting. Lewis has had a couple of home brewing experiments, and he is interested in helping out at a brewery. There's a big new brewery sort of scene in Western Massachusetts, in Northampton and in East Hampton and a few different places. There's a number of new breweries, and Lewis is looking to up his brewing game. Maybe this will come together with the moving to the South, where he would move to the South with his newfound brewing skills and maybe start a brewery or something like that. I don't know. I'm speculating here. But that's the situation with Lewis right now. And I'm trying to think if anything else came up. He may be coming out to Boston in the next month or so with a friend. And if so, maybe he would drop in on the bonus show. I don't really know. And we could hear from him directly. But I wish I had more exciting news to tell people, because people are so interested in what's going on with Lewis. This is just it. It's not exciting, and that's sort of part of Lewis's thing.
And do you know if he's been watching the show and keeping up with it?
He's been keeping up with clips here and there. He's certainly been keeping up with the news. He's aware of some of the more viral clips that we've had over the last month, and there have been a number, most of them related to the election in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, Lewis is keeping up with the show. He's aware of the clips that have been doing well, and he's very engaged politically. He just might vote in November. Just brace yourselves, because Lewis might actually vote this year without me having to go pick him up and bring him to the polling place. So that's what's going on with Lewis. Any questions on that, let me know. I'll probably see Lewis again his birthday falls on Thanksgiving, and I'll be back out in Western Mass around then. So at the latest then, but maybe sooner, I don't know. So any questions for Lewis, please let me know, and I'll pass them along. And maybe we could just get him to call into the bonus show and answer questions that accumulate or something like that. But we'll deal with that. And also, later this week, I will tell you about the plan for next week, which will be a little bit of a different week. We'll be broadcasting from a conference. We'll have Ben Dixon guest hosting one day, and it'll be very exciting in a number of different ways. That's it for today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.